Welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast, a podcast from the home of Scrum. In this podcast, we feature professional Scrum trainers and other Scrum practitioners sharing their stories and experiences to help learn from the experience of others. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Scrum.org Community Podcast. I am Leslie Morse, and I'll be serving as the host for today's conversation. We're going to be unpacking the story behind a paper that has recently been published on Scrum.org about a Belgian company called Strobbo. This paper details how they've used professional Scrum to accelerate go-to-market by creating a learning culture, fostering transparency, and building trust-based leadership. It is fantastic to be joined by three people central to this story: Bert Neels, Strobbo's co-founder; Michael Voorhaen, which is Strobbo's product owner; and Stephen Deneir, who's a professional Scrum trainer that supported their journey. Thanks for joining me today, guys. I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Well, we are going to kind of do incremental introductions as we get into today's journey. So, Bert, we're going to start with you. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your Strobbo journey, and what Strobbo does as a company?
Yes. So, I started my career as an IT consultant, and I had to look back a bit to give you the correct timeline. So here it goes. It all started around 2007. I was still in school by then, together with the co-founder of Strobbo, Nick Gijs. He was a classmate of me. So yeah, at that time we both worked in a local restaurant, and we happened to both be responsible for the planning in that restaurant. So that's where the idea grew, to build a solution to plan the colleagues in the restaurant. And we built that actually as a school project by then, in 2007. So yeah, that's actually where the first version was created. After that, we used it, of course, in the restaurants where we worked, and we got good grades at school, so that was nice as well. But then, yeah, it slowed down a bit, and we just parked it and went our own way. I went into consultancy. Nick was, I'm gonna say it, but you're not gonna like it, but he became a project manager at that time. But then, yeah, we kept in touch. It was still used in the restaurants where we worked. And then in 2012, around that time, we decided to pick it up again, the both of us. And then, yeah, we slowly picked it up, and then just the two of us. In 2013 already, we had like around 10 clients at that point. We were just doing it on the side, next to our full-time day jobs. So we won the Pioneer Award in the hospitality fair, the biggest hospitality fair in Belgium at that time. Still, we only had like 10 customers and were doing it on the side. But yeah, we saw some opening there. We kept working on it, but actually it didn't got picked up by the market. Mostly, forgot to mention, 2007 was actually the time where you didn't have internet on your smartphone, at least in Belgium. In 2013, it was a little bit better, but not that good. And also people were afraid to have their data in the cloud. There was that period. So actually around 2016, we were still trying, so we didn't give up. In 2016, there came a law in Belgium enforcing people to use a registered cash registry. So, and besides that, when they did it, they were able to use flexible employees, but they had to use the cash registry. And so actually, that was the point where the whole sector was, the hospitality sector was professionalizing, and we saw the opening there, and that's where we jumped on it. So we started hiring people, even though we were still doing our day jobs. Beside that, we started hiring people, and in 2017, we already got an innovation grant of like of more than 100K. And also we were admitted to the IMEC iStart program. It's a well-known program in Belgium. So yeah, that gave us a big boost. And around 2018, we were having more than 400 customers and a team of 8 people at that time. And that's the point where we sold the company to the SD Works group because we were in search of more money. Didn't find it at the bank at that point in time. And we found a good partner in SD Works because we already linked the system with SD Works at that point. So yeah, that's actually how it all started. After that, it got a big boost. That's what you can see in the story. We're now, in total, Strobbo is a team of 45 to 50 people now, with a technical team of 25 plus people at this point. So yeah, we're serving still, our main focus is still the hospitality sector, but we're also focusing a bit on retail right now because there's a lot of openings there. And of course, we started together with the SD Works Group, go into a more international context right now. So yeah, maybe the last thing, most people that started with us, I think almost half of them came right from school and started with us. So yeah, it's a plus and a negative. They don't know anything else than Strobbo as an employer, as a place to work. But yeah, it's like a really close group, and that's also very important in the whole story.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that sort of that timeline because it puts into context like what the real life is for a co-founder of an organization bringing a technology product into an early adopter sort of thing and how you've grown incrementally over time. You talked about how Strobbo is sort of focused in on a core of hospitality, but also into retail. Can you just sort of give us that summary of what like the core value proposition and functionality of the product is?
Yeah, so the core value proposition is still in planning. That's where it starts. And after that, to get the whole link, you have the time registration. So when you start working and end working. And then we linked it to the government in Belgium. Because for the flex workers, you need to have the contracts synced directly. So you have 15 minutes to do it. And then in the end of the month, everything comes together, the time registration, absences and planning. We create the basis for the payroll of these people. That's actually what Strobbo does in a nutshell.
So it's really hospitality and retail kind of business process management related to employees and payroll and all of that sort of stuff.
Indeed, that's
cool.
correct.
Very cool. So Stephen, you know Bert enough to have gotten engaged in helping on the journey as Strobbo was looking to change their ways of working and stuff. So tell us about kind of your origin story with Bert and how you got involved. I'm kind of also curious, like, what was that challenge he set before you as y'all started working together?
All right. So in fact, Bert joined one of the trainings I facilitated with Boost Your Scrum. That was somewhere 2020. And shortly after, also Michael joined one of the sessions. But we only started collaborating on the Strobbo challenges, I think, if I recall it well, 22. But meanwhile, we stayed in contact and I got some messages from Bert, from Michael after the trainings. But all at the moment, it was Bert who called me and he said, I want to have a chat and see how we might collaborate to improve a bit on Strobbo. And the challenge I got initially from Bert at that moment was about the teams are not really motivated, sometimes even pessimistic about reaching targets that had been set at the moment that Strobbo was taken over by SD Works. Team members that were passive, while there was quite an important challenge at the hand to deliver the solution in the new technology, if I recall that well. The team was also fully depending on Michael as PO to give them all the inputs, all the details, and on Bert on approaches, on process, on ways of working. And so what I heard at that moment was that Bert wanted that the teams to get more in hand to free up, on the one hand, his time, but also the time from Michael more. And so when I heard all that, to me, it was pretty clear that if these people would take more ownership, live more values as we know them in Scrum, collaborate more, focused more on quality, that definitely Scrum would help them forward. And so we had a great chat. And since then, I coached Bert. And a bit later, I started also coaching Michael as product owner. That's in summary how we got started together on the challenge.
Awesome. Very cool. So Michael, Stephen gave us a great segue there. You were serving as product owner for, is the way I understand it, was 5 development groups. There weren't any explicit Scrum Masters. So how did you get to Strobbo, and what were like your challenges in those early ways of working before you kind of got on this professional Scrum journey?
Yeah, I joined Strobbo about 5 years ago, so it will probably have been like 2019, I guess. I actually came from a developer role where I previously always before that as a full stack developer, I navigated a little bit more towards front end development because I really liked building products that customers can use and work together with them, get feedback and start improving on it. But okay, I think at that point in time, I was getting a little bit losing the challenge at my current job, and then I came across the opening at Strobbo, and the line for line, it was like a description of the things that I felt like I was either good at or I wanted to improve. So the product owner part was maybe a part of it, but there was also the thing that Strobbo was going from an old technology stack to a new one, which I had a lot of experience in because I was doing exactly the same thing there, and I already did it a couple of times in the past. So I knew that I could help the team a lot there with the struggles that they were having. But the fun thing was I reacted. It was very close by to home, so that was a big win for me. No more traffic jams. I got to Strobbo, and me and Bert started talking, and it was not a job interview. I mean, like 10 minutes in, we were already planning, like we could do it like this, and we were thinking, and I ended up walking out 3 hours later, and I think there were just some financial details to figure out, but I already knew I wanted to start there because it looked so much fun. So I ended up joining. The team was a lot smaller then, but we knew that the growth was coming. And once it started growing, okay, we already started experimenting a little bit, but actually I had Scrum experience before, but not in a kind of leadership role. So for me, that was also a new thing that started occurring. We managed to split the teams a little bit into smaller groups to create focus, but it was all very mechanical. And as a product owner, I was mostly running into a lot of problems with really needing to be very active with the teams and not being able to spend a lot of time with customers, with stakeholders on working on the long-term strategy and vision part. It was mostly about smaller stories and all their details and trying to figure it out with the team and then repeating it the next day because everybody already forgot. And we were really struggling at that point in time. We managed to finish features, but at that point in time, Bert was also a little bit of a bottleneck because he was still very involved in the release process. So by the time the code actually really hit production, issues started popping up because the team wasn't really always 100% aware of what was happening. And because of the delay, they were already working on something new, and all of those little small problems started to pop up, and you could see all of the cracks in the foundation popping up. And I think that's the point in time where both Bert and me said, like, okay, we need to do something. We need to figure it out. I think the big thing there is that think that we at one point realized that we were both becoming the bottlenecks in the company. So I think a big driver there was to make sure that we were not the bottlenecks anymore, and that we put the responsibility to the teams. Of course, yeah, then the entire thing started. How do we get the responsibility and the ownership to the teams without overloading them? Because like Bert said, there were a lot of junior starters there. So we also knew that we had to work on technical excellence and at various different levels. And that's where, of course, Stephen then came into the picture, because we went for a training. I already knew some ex-colleagues of Stephen at that point, so I think I pointed out Bert to direction, like, let's go do some trainings. And I think there was also a click with Stephen there, like we were on a good level. We knew that we could trust them with this.
That's great. Y'all talked about a variety of the different challenges. Both Bert and Michael you guys being bottlenecks, needing to free up your time to focus on different stuff and all of these things. But we know that accelerating time to market is one of the outcomes you achieved. And so what I'm kind of curious about is, at the beginning, when you engaged Stephen, did you have an intentional objective of accelerating go-to-market, or was that just sort of a happy consequence of all of the other challenges you were working to navigate?
I think it's actually one of the side effects. It was not really our intent. One of the problems that we were having, or at least one of the things that we noticed, was that the company was growing so fast that we were having as a product group very much difficulties just keeping up, and in combination with the fact that we needed to rewrite all of the code. So I think one of our main drivers was to make sure that we could support that growth. And then, of course, yeah, a lot of things that a little bit circle around that. We wanted the teams to be autonomous. So we wanted them to be proud of what they were doing. And I think, as a little bit of a side note there, we were also very much aware, because of the acquisition, that there's some pressure on us that if we do not perform, there's a very big opportunity that we lose that autonomy as a group in the organization. So we kind of came up with the strategy. We really want to be a showcase within the SD Works group, so that we also can keep doing and working the way that we actually enjoy working and have that level of autonomy. And then, of course, yeah, the fact that everything with accelerating the go-to-market of new features now and making sure that we have a closer customer contract is a side effect of how that already started, of course. Now we are actually matching the growth, and maybe we're even coming to the point where we can actually, with the development team, go a little bit further. So I think that's a much more comfortable position that we're now in than we were in before.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder how different the journey would have been if the primary goal had been accelerate go-to-market, right? Finding that as a happy outcome versus the thing you're trying to make happen is such a very different mindset, because it sounds like you were really focused on solving the challenges that were making work hard, and thus, as a result, you got the faster time to market, versus sometimes just engineering for faster time to market could make work even harder. And so I do wonder what that would be like if it had been different.
I think it's a very good question, and I think for me it ties in a little bit with it ties in with the culture of Strobbo, and also one of the reasons why I joined the company. It's a very young company, so there's a lot of young people. When I joined, I was immediately the oldest person in the company by several years, except maybe Bert. We don't differ that much, but with some people the gap was like, okay, no, it's getting very close to they could be my children. That's okay. I like the atmosphere. There was a dynamic with the team to really just go for it. But as time progressed and as we grew, it made it more difficult to do that. And I think there's a very big family feeling. So the people at Strobbo and at the team, they really care for each other. And I think that's something that we wanted to nurture, and also make sure that we could have all of those young people grow and flourish, make sure that we could have fun doing it and still deliver a lot of work. If we would have gone the other way, like we want to become a very feature factory where everything is going out very fast, I think at the end we would have lost a lot of people. And I think right now there's a lot more cohesiveness in the team, a lot more dedication to commit to the goals that we want to work on and make sure that we reach them. But it's because we actually started from making it fun for everybody to work at Strobbo, and not really immediately thinking about the financial gains.
Yeah. Feature factory was exactly kind of my negative manifestation of how I thought that could have played out if the goal would have been different. And I'm going to guess, Bert, you're going to tell us a little bit about the fact that because you're a startup, that this was different. Because the story we normally hear is the co-founders experiencing these struggles, they hire an agile coach, and that agile coach goes and like works with the teams. But you deliberately took an approach where you're like, Stephen, I want you to come in and work with me, and I want to lead the change and be the one that shows up differently, that creates a different way of working within these development teams. So like, what was that motivation for you, and why did you make that intentional decision?
Yes, yeah. So I'm going to be very open about it. It actually wasn't an intentional decision. Yeah, it was really just the situation we were in. We were really focused on development, and the whole team existed of developers, including Michael as product owner. He had a development background. He was at a certain point in time, I think, the best developer we had within the team. Then again, I tried to keep him from developing, but yeah. So actually, I didn't think about it. To me, yeah. It also, with regards to the budget, it was just for me the logical thing to do. Ask help and try to do it myself as much as possible. Yeah. Also to not have to convince the board, because at that time we did have a budget that we had to fight for a little bit. So yeah, it just went that way. And I said, let's try it to do it and see what comes up.
So what was that relationship like between the two of y'all? The paper does a good job of kind of outlining the coaching kata as a basis for the conversations, but why that technique, and what was that dynamic between the two of you as you were like working to unlock the new leader within Bert?
Yeah. So maybe briefly, we first had in our first session, I recall it vividly. The idea for me was, what's the real challenge, Bert? What are we really trying to achieve on the one hand, and also what is blocking us to get there? And having that clarity in Bert's mind already, because we had quite an intensive conversation about it, to dig that deep, already allowed Bert, that was my impression anyway, to say, okay, this is where I need to go. It was not that clear. And from then on, it was each time questioning, what will be the next step? What will be the next step? What will be the next step?
Bert, what was your experience?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Stephen let me complain like half an hour, and then he said like, yeah, now it's time to maybe focus on what we should do to stop the complaining. But yeah, my experience was like Stephen was more or less, yeah, a friend, but with a lot of experience, and maybe most beneficial for us, an outside view on the situation. And that's also when I reflect on the agile coach, I think it would have been very different with someone within our company, within our team, because he would have we would become biased towards some things where Stephen always had the outsider's view. So for me, that was a very important dynamic. Yeah, besides that, of course, Stephen is a good listener, but he can also indicate when you're starting to repeat yourself, and he can facilitate that in the right way.
Yeah, can you compare and contrast maybe some of the leadership style that you embodied before working with Stephen and the deliberate things that you changed throughout this journey?
Yeah, maybe the most important one is I always tried to be, and I think I succeeded in that, one of the team members that grew from the start. As Michael told you, I was a big bottleneck because I did all releases at a certain point in time, which also made the procedure lacking some structure. Let's put it that way. So yeah, till the point I was really the only one who could do it with a little confidence. So yeah, my style was I was the one who was there on Saturday if needed, on Sunday if needed, on evenings if needed. I think only until like a year ago, some people worked in a weekend where I didn't work. So that style, I think I still kept it. But what changed the most during the coaching is that I didn't try to solve everything myself, but actually learned how to involve the group from the start. That's I think the biggest thing that really changed in my style. And yeah, I just learned how to be open about the problem and not try to come with the solution to the problem, but just come with the problem and have the courage to do that without having the solution in mind. I think that's the biggest change in style.
Yeah, and there's so much as being a co-founder that you have to kind of deconstruct within yourself around being that locus of control. My stomach hurts a little bit for you when I think about the work you had to do to make those changes.
Yes. It was, of course, also a bit of a personal journey. Learning how to let go.
Yeah.
And yeah. But yeah.
Well, I mean, the headline of the case study is really about trust-based leadership, right? And putting that trust in the teams to allow them to self-manage. So, Michael, you were kind of working within the teams as Bert was going through his own transformation. What became different for you, and what did you observe changing throughout that period of time?
A lot of things. I think it probably started small. We started doing some small experiments, but as we progressed, I was no longer needed to actually help the teams detail out every story that they were going to plan in the sprint. And my role as product owner really started to shift, and I was no longer in this kind of how would you call it, kind of role of functional analyst, where I was analyzing everything and then chewing it up and giving it to the teams, but more giving direction to the teams. Like this is like the most logical next step that we need to take. How can we build it? And there's steps in between that, but that's how it goes at the moment. Like if I look at our sprint plannings, it's really very much like this is the long-term goal. These are our short-term goals. I think that for the short-term goals, we probably should be doing this, and then the team there's a little bit of a talk about it, but usually it's like, oh yeah, we can do that. And then they go off and they make their detailed planning. So I'm not really involved in day-to-day anymore, but that gives me a lot of freedom to start working with the stakeholders. So I can do things like organizing co-creation workshops around our roadmap where everybody from the company is joining in. from different roles, from different levels, and we really seek alignment to where do we want to go in the next couple of months. And every couple of months we update that. I've been able to work with our support and onboarding teams to kind of start cataloging all of the customer feedback, so we have raw data to work on that. And generally just bringing more transparency regarding our roadmap and backlog, being able to step into a position where I can help the rest of the business, bring them into contact with the development teams, and not really being that involved with the development teams because I need to be. It's more of a choice. I can join and I can start listening in and talk with them. But I also have the feeling that if I go on a holiday for a couple of weeks, I know that it will be okay and that the right decisions will be taken. So there's a lot of things that progressed in a very good order there, and I think, I mean, looking back in it, I think it was a very good thing that Bert started the coaching sessions with Steven, and I think maybe just the one comment that I want to pick out for there is that I think Steven was also really able to get the best out of Bert in the sense that he has always been a good team lead for the team, and he's even a better team lead now because he empowers them that much. So for me, that was a very positive evolution to see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Stephen, you were kind of the Oz behind the curtain. I don't know if that is even a valuable metaphor given the way it all played out, but like what would you say? Because it wasn't just coaching and mentorship that you were providing. There was also training for the whole teams in Scrum and other interventions you used. So what choices were you making in helping Bert and Michael as leaders kind of show up differently and engage differently so that the teams were better able to be autonomous and self-managing?
Yeah. So all in all, the people followed training. Yeah, I did some other interventions, but it was always because it was Bert's choice. So during our coaching sessions, we always look to what could be a next good step. What options do we see? Which one do you choose? And I always let it in his hands because after a short while, I knew he knew his people. I knew he had trust from the people. I knew that he, with them, after a very short period, I was really with them, could decide what was the best option. So it was never my choice to do this or that. I always followed the coaching kata. Like, what's the best next step? What options do you have? What do you choose? And sometimes it went great. Sometimes it was a bit more difficult. And the week after it was like, this didn't work. And we took another option. Well, Bert took another option. So nothing spectacular there from my side.
Yeah. Were there any kind of seminal decisions or choices that were made, Bert, either you or Stephen, to give some commentary on around like these were really key decisions that enabled change to happen?
Bert, you might think about your sprint reviews, how these changed.
Yeah, so yeah, indeed, that was a big one that put a lot of other things in motion, but yeah, bringing transparency outside of the development team, because we had been keeping our kitchen hidden for a long while, and that's a bit, yeah, it's a bit self-defense mechanism, I think, of a developer and of a development team, to just show the good things and hide all the rest. So yeah, the point where we started shifting that and really just started inviting people from outside of the development team into the sprint review. And we just really showed this was our sprint. You can inspect it now, or even at some occurrences, there's nothing to inspect. That's maybe the thing that had the most impact over time.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. in the restaurant metaphor of the kitchen versus the front of the house is such a wonderful metaphor to use there, because it is very different when that's an open kitchen, completely viewable by the front of the house where all the guests are, versus when that kitchen is closed off. The culture and everything of that can be very different. I think it's a great metaphor for a lot of the changes that we talk about in organizations.
Wow, what a great story. This is Lindsay here at the Scrum.org Community Podcast. We are actually going to continue this episode next week, so stay tuned. They're going to share some final thoughts, and Leslie is posing 2 really interesting questions. So please tune in next week, and we will wrap things up and leave you with some final advice too from Stephen and Bert and Michael. All right, thank you. Scrum on.